The morning light filtered through the hospital windows as Maria sat in the pre-op room, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the thin hospital gown. At 42, she had never imagined she would be facing a lumpectomy. The word cancer still echoing in her mind like a cruel whisper that had shattered her world just weeks before. The diagnosis had come as a shock, a routine mammogram that turned her life upside down in an instant. Her husband David had driven her to the hospital that morning, his presence initially a comfort as they navigated the maze of corridors and paperwork. But as the nurses began their preparations, checking her vitals and explaining the procedure one more time, David grew restless. His eyes kept darting toward the door, his foot tapping an anxious rhythm against the linoleum floor. "I'm going to run some errands while you're getting ready," he announced suddenly, his voice casual despite the gravity of the moment. "I'll be right back before they take you in." Maria nodded, forcing a smile despite the knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. She understood. Hospitals made some people uncomfortable, and she assumed he needed a moment to collect himself. After all, this was scary for him too, watching his wife face cancer surgery. The nurses worked efficiently around her, their gentle voices and professional demeanor providing some comfort as they prepared her for the procedure. When the time came for her to be wheeled into the operating room, one nurse paused thoughtfully. "Would you like us to call your husband to come sit with you until it's time to go in?" she asked kindly, recognizing the fear in Maria's eyes. "Yes, please," Maria whispered, her voice barely audible. She needed him now more than ever, a final kiss, a gentle touch, words of love and reassurance before she faced the unknown. The nurse disappeared down the hallway, her footsteps echoing in the sterile corridor. Minutes ticked by like hours as Maria waited, her heart pounding with a mixture of pre-surgical anxiety and growing concern. The nurse returned with a puzzled expression and empty hands. "I'm sorry, honey. I looked everywhere, but I can't find him. His phone is going straight to voicemail." The words hit Maria like a physical blow. She lay there on the gurney, surrounded by the beeping of monitors and the quiet efficiency of the medical staff, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. Where was he? Where was the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health? For an entire hour, she waited in that sterile room, watching the clock on the wall tick away the minutes. Nurses came and went, offering gentle smiles and checking on her, but none of them could fill the gaping hole left by her husband's absence. She thought of her mother, wishing desperately that she had asked her to come instead of relying on David. Finally, they couldn't wait any longer. Maria was wheeled into surgery without a goodbye kiss, without hearing "I love you," without any of the comfort she had desperately needed. The loneliness was crushing, a weight on her chest that felt heavier than the fear of the procedure itself. The lumpectomy lasted just over an hour. When Maria woke up in recovery, groggy from anesthesia and disoriented, her first instinct was to look for David. The chair beside her bed remained empty. The nurse checking her vitals noticed her searching eyes. "We're still trying to reach him," she said, her voice tinged with obvious irritation. "He's not answering his phone." As the anesthesia wore off, Maria's worry transformed into something darker, a growing realization that something was fundamentally wrong. The nurse returned with post-surgery instructions, speaking carefully about wound care and follow-up appointments. But Maria could barely focus. Her mind was spinning with questions and hurt. "Sweetie," the nurse said gently after another 30 minutes had passed. "We're still trying to call him. But if he doesn't get here soon, you won't be able to leave. There's a big storm coming in, and this wing will be on lockdown until it passes." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes, threatening to spill over. She had just survived cancer surgery, and now she might be trapped in the hospital because her husband had simply disappeared. All she wanted was to go home, to heal in familiar surroundings, to process what had happened to her body and her life. 10 more agonizing minutes crawled by before David finally appeared in the doorway, carrying a dozen red roses like some romantic gesture from a movie. His casual demeanor and the satisfied smile on his face made Maria's stomach turn. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice barely controlled. "I was at Murphy's bar," he replied without a hint of shame. "I was hungry for one of their delicious burgers. You know how good they are." The words hung in the air like a slap. While she had been alone, frightened and facing surgery to remove cancer from her breast, He had been enjoying a meal and drinks at his favorite bar. The casualness of his response, the complete lack of understanding about what she had endured, shattered something inside her. "I waited alone through everything," she said, her voice breaking. "You should have been there for me." He held out the roses with a shrug. "I'm sorry. Here, I got you these. You can take those roses and shove them," Maria said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I'm never having you come with me to a medical procedure again. You suck." The ride home was silent except for the sound of Maria's tears, each drop carrying the weight of her realization that when she needed her husband most, he had chosen a burger over her battle with cancer. What would you do in Maria's situation? How would you feel if your partner abandoned you during a medical crisis? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.